Hello. Welcome back, everybody. Excited to get into today's episode. Before we do, I need to say, last week on the amazing Rivian episode we had, I made a call out that said if the last video got 100, no, 50 likes, I set the bar pretty low, at 50 likes, my mum would come on the show, as I do name drop her quite a lot for knowing a lot about FinOps. And I think the video, last time I checked, is about 90 likes. So thanks to you guys, I will be finding an episode to bring my mother on. She was not, I hadn't checked with her before I said this, so it's going to be an interesting episode. But because of the reaction you guys had, we're definitely going to do some more of those. So if there are things we want to suggest or we want to get your feedback on, I will be using the likes as a great way to get feedback. But with me is Yuri today, my partner in crime for so many of these episodes and so many speaking gigs. Yuri, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Pleasure, and always nice to have you. So today we've got a two-parter. If you're watching on the live stream, we'll be doing the what's of waste with Yuri to kick us off, and then the second half is going to be cost news digest with Savannah. If you're watching on YouTube, this will be broken into two episodes. And if you're watching on YouTube, why not hit that subscribe button and give the video a like to show us that you are enjoying this amazing episode of What's of Waste, which we'll get into. So let's introduce. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm a senior optimization architect advocate. Our title is still so long, and I'm here to help you with all your FinOps questions. And I have with me today Yuri. Do you want to say hi
Yeah,
or
hi,
introduce
everyone.
yourself?
Yeah. Yuri, I'm Principal Technical Account Manager at Enterprise Support, and I'm also leading Cloud Intelligence Dashboards project at AWS.
Amazing. And we've already had some questions. Hey, Yuri and Steph, what are we looking at today? Well, today we are actually going to be doing a session that we did with the FinOps community in London a couple of weeks ago on the what's of waste. So we wanted to showcase three main questions. So what do we consider waste? What tools do we use to find it? And what do you do next when you found this waste? So we did this as a chalk talk with, I think, like 60 or 80 people. People really enjoyed it. We had some great chat with everybody. And so we thought, why not do this as an episode? And digest with Savannah. So that is the cost news digest. So in the next part, we will be looking at some top announcements that have happened and kind of going through those. So as always, like those just done, please feel free to put comments, questions in the chat. We want to make sure that we hear from you and get your feedback on how you're doing and any questions that you have from us throughout the episode. But Yuri, one thing we want to mention before we get started into the what's of waste is we're going to be at FinOps X this year. Do you want to tell the folks what we're going to be talking about this year's event?
Oh, yes, that I'm super excited about this opportunity and FinOps X this year because as AWS, we are sponsoring it. We are like first time it will be FinOps X when we are members of FinOps Foundation, and we have a session which will be dedicated to cloud governance and how to build right governance to actually set the right foundation and to reduce proactively cloud waste and optimize the cost. So basically, cloud governance and FinOps, how to build it, how to set foundation, how to use it properly.
Yeah, and we're going to be speaking with Twilio, who has done a couple of different events in the foundation as well. So hearing his story, and we're going to be doing some technical demos as well, which I am super excited about. Savannah says, really excited to see your FinOps PowerPoint. Somebody may have helped with the FinOps PowerPoint, so she's looking forward to seeing that. So yes. Okay, so let's get into the what's of waste. So the reason we wanted to do this was because the FinOps State of FinOps survey, which I'll drop the link to in the chat now. This runs every year and it goes out and it asks the question, what is everybody caring about in the world of FinOps? Lots of intricate data points. We recommend you kind of check that out. And what we saw was that it used to be, Yuri, do you remember what the old top or concern or challenge that FinOps practitioners had was?
It used to be getting engineers to take an action, but it's not anymore.
No, it's not anymore. It's moved to reducing waste. That was the number one concern. And the getting engineers to take action has been a kind of challenge for people for years. So it's very exciting to see that it is no longer like the number one, but the waste element is probably still part of the engineering challenge. So it's
Yeah,
interesting to see kind of how those things have
I'm
migrated.
I'm always curious how you can reduce waste without engineers. But I would leave this to people who responded to FinOps
Yeah.
survey. But yeah, I do believe you still need engineers, like to reduce waste, to optimize resources. Like it's a core part of FinOps. Getting
Mhm.
people to collaborate and to act.
Yeah, and it's gonna be fun for us to dive into the, these three sections that we've come up with. So why don't we go into the first one? And so we wanted to also ask and see if the chat is up and listening today. Is what do we consider cloud waste? So chat, what do you think is cloud waste? What comes to mind if someone says that? So one I'll throw in there from us, things like idle resources are a good example. Any ones that are come into people's minds would be good. So we've got idle resources. We've got unnecessary data. That's a good
Yeah,
example of ones that be coming through. We'll kind of dive into that. What else have we got? We'll run through the chat and then we'll come through our examples. Resources providing no business value. I love that because that is so specific to kind of what is the point of a resource.
yeah.
It could be wasteful, but if it's doing something important, then it's what else have we
It's
got?
the core principle of FinOps: maximize business value, right? If your
Yeah.
resources doesn't bring you any value, it's waste.
Yeah, exactly. All right, low usage instances. There's a couple of those over provisioned instances, over
Yeah,
provisioned, um, over committing. Interesting, different kind of word on that, but still similar kind of idea. CloudWatch logs from a decade ago. We love seeing some CloudWatch representation in the chat.
yeah.
And the last one, cloud waste. Ooh, I feel like this person's throwing a bit of shade at some junior staff. Training staff, hiring juniors. I feel like Savannah's enjoying that. That's a really interesting point. We haven't got that in our kind of summary slide. Yuri, what do you think about this one?
Well, look, we have it in culture side, so we are going to cover like the cultural aspects. That look, overall, I think it's kind of uh, related in the wise use of your time or avoid wasting of the time. So get people right tools, right, I don't know, right training, right
Mhm.
recommendations, so they can quickly get into actions, yeah, and minimize amount of time to actually like identify waste. That's the
Yeah.
key part. And training people, helping them to get on board. I think it's like the better tooling you are using, the better culture you have around this, like less time you waste on all these efforts, and you get into actions, into reducing waste.
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting one. Thanks, guys, for the chat. We love seeing this, and you kind of have summarized some of the ones that we're going to just run through right now. So let's go back and forth. So, Yuri, why don't you start us off with idle resources? Like, what do we consider when you think of an idle resource? How do you see that in an account?
Yeah, so idle resources, like there are, I would say, two types for me, idle resources. Ones which someone mentioned already, the resources which might be kind of utilized, but they in reality they never bring you any business value. So like this is
Mhm.
more kind of cultural aspect. But usually what we think about idle resources from infrastructural point of view is pretty much every resource which has hourly charges where you're paying for just amount of time which when you
Mhm.
use the resource, and at the same times which are not utilized. And it could be either like underutilized when something like EC2 instances, RDS instances, which can be, like CPU memory could be utilized only like by 15-20%. So it's pretty much, it's not really idle, but it's like underutilized, but it's still kind of in the similar category. Or if we talk about like idleness, then the resource could be completely like not utilized. Yes, so like
Mhm.
CPU could be zero, memory could be zero. So this resource just warms up the air, yeah, in somewhere in data center. But also what is interesting that when we think about idle resources, it's not only instances like EC2 or RDS instances. There are plenty of other resources which have hourly fees, such as
Mhm.
NAT gateways, such as load balancers, such as what else? Kinesis streams. Yeah, you pay for shard hour, and then you pay for the data request which you send there. So like many other resources have concept of idleness, and like you should be aware about those resources as well when you think about idle resources. It's not only EC2,
Yeah.
it's not only RTS, it's much more. VPC endpoints, by the way, they
Yeah.
also can be idle.
Yeah, there's so many bits that can be cause this. And I'm going to pull back up Eric's quote, which is like resource providing no business value. I think that is a great way for defining these. If they're just being paid for and not being used,
Hmm.
then that is what you're going to be looking out for. On the
Yeah.
same note, there is obviously that over provision side of it. So you're similar kind of concept, you have all this stuff that you're not using. But that is often we see with things like compute power, kind of storage. They're the ones where you've obviously just put in a metric to be like, oh, I think I need this much, and no one has checked it. And this is something that I see a lot happen with using default values and people just being like, that's the size we use, or that's the instance type we use, and not really kind of checking yourselves on the metrics around those utilizations of those services, and actually being critical and saying, oh, wow, I've actually made that too big. Let me just downsize it. Very simple. The next one we got is unused commitments. Do you see a lot of this with your customers, Yuri? People kind of buying too much of these? Or also one person said at the event, like not buying them at all was like another way of kind of losing money on this.
Luckily, not much. But obviously this could happen, and this is important metric to keep an eye on. So,
Mhm.
like, actually, not every unused or underutilized commitment is bad. Yes, so
Yeah.
sometimes you can overcommit a little bit. Yes, your break even should be positive. Yes, so your total savings should be higher than like unused commitment. But at the
Mhm.
same time, what you should avoid is having like huge amount of unused commitments. For example, when you purchase some reserved instances for a particular instance RDS instance type, and then one of your engineering teams decided to migrate to Graviton, and they just moved to completely different instance type, and your commitments, like your bunch of commitments, became underutilized, and in reality you're paying twice now. So for on
Mhm.
demand, for new instance types, and for reserved old instance types. So for like to avoid this, first of all, um, like make sure that you are optimizing before making like very large commitments. Yes, so if you
Mhm.
plan to migrate to Graviton, for example, like migrate before you making the commitments. And second part is use incremental commitments. So do not consider like purchasing a rise or savings plans as one single purchase like for entire workloads. Use a purchase incrementally, like maybe like 30% in like first 3 months, then increase like or 25%, then increase by 25%. So you always have a window of expiring a rise, which will provide you some flexibility to
Adjust,
move
yeah.
to adjust. Yes, so that's important.
Yeah. And so one other thing this person said on the chat, the talk that we said was not buying them at all. I think sometimes people get, like you were saying, they think about it from I have to buy it all at once rather than thinking about the small parts and just buying a little bit and having a bit of coverage as you find your feet. If you're newer to the world of optimizing and cloud, it's always good to do
Yeah,
that. And a couple of points in the chat, which I love. Customers are getting smarter with managing commitments. Used to see more waste years past, but not anymore. So that's great to hear that people are actually kind of controlling it and not seeing it as a scary thing to commit.
yeah,
And a great reminder from Savannah, use budgets to monitor your commitment utilization and coverage. Really good point, just to make sure that you have some kind of notification to understand and be alerted so you don't have to go and check that every
yeah,
single
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. And like collaborate with your teams. Yes, so like for things like savings plans it's easier, but for reserved instances you need to know the plans of your organizations, of your engineering
Mhm.
teams, like before making commitments.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm going to do one more and then I'll throw up the slide to kind of consider because I think we've dove into a couple of points and I want to make sure we get on to the next section. The last one I wanted to touch on was time. Now, that is something that I think there's a lot of kind of debate and having to have this kind of argument of like, do I spend all this time deleting, I don't know, snapshots, and then you spent a week doing it, and then you realize, oh, because they're all part of lineage, you didn't actually save any money, but you spent all this time doing it. And asking the questions like, what is going to give you the most bang for your buck in terms of actionable time, and what ones you could automate, what ones you need to have like deep conversations at, how do you prioritize them, and so making sure that you kind of check your waste and figure out what can you actually do now and what is like a longer term project so that you're not wasting your time. Right, let me bring up our slide so that we can kind of see a summary. So these are the ones that we had in total. So like the top row, we kind of covered the top row, but think about the other ones. Bit of data transfer, making sure you're keeping things in the same regions. You don't have to waste money on that. Storage redundancy, only using the storage class that you actually need based on your access patterns. And always think about the carbon. You know, we need to save the planet. There's little stuff going
Yeah,
on.
and optimize your data transfer, which is
Yeah,
good to reduce the carbon footprint as well.
exactly. So save the earth. We love the earth. Also, okay. So let's. Any interesting examples of reducing waste recently? Yuri, have any of your customers done anything cool with reducing some savings?
Oh, yes. I had recently 2 customer stories where we managed to significantly reduce waste in optimizing NAT gateways. Actually, like data transfer, which is, not the very useful or like the first aspect when you talk about reducing waste. So first part of the story is, if you see inter-AZ data transfer on your NAT gateways, it means that you have NAT gateway deployed in one availability zone and resources from another availability zone actually sending traffic through this NAT gateway. So they are crossing availability zones. So if it's significant amount of costs, you really can deploy NAT gateways in every availability zone where you have workloads and send traffic through local NAT gateways. So in our case, we managed to actually optimize like thousands of dollars per month of inter-AZ data transfer and improve resiliency, because now you have NAT gateways in every availability zone. So failure of one availability zone won't impact your workloads. But the second part of this optimization is what you can also like try to identify if where you send in traffic through NAT gateways too, because NAT gateways have their like NAT gateways data process charges, so you pay for amount of traffic which went through NAT gateway. And if you send in traffic to AWS services such as S3 or DynamoDB or others, so like you really don't need to use NAT gateways. You do not need to send it through public endpoints. You need to deploy. You can deploy like gateway endpoint or like VPC endpoints or private link, and route this traffic actually like directly to AWS services through private endpoints. This would actually help in another example to have to save customer millions of dollars. So that was very large optimization
Ooh,
and relatively low effort.
yeah,
So
just identifying those cases. Amazing. Okay. I love hearing the stories of savings. And if you have any stories that you want to share or any things you want to share about some cost optimization, you can always email us at costoptimization@amazon.com. Okay, on to the next section, which was now we know what we consider waste. What tools can we use to identify them? So we'll just run through a couple of these tools and then kind of throw that slide up again. So we'll choose kind of 2 or 3, and then we're going to be asking if you want a quick demo of one of them. So we'll be putting up a poll in a second. So Yuri, do you want to kick off with one? Whichever one you want to choose. I wonder what you'll choose, your favorite one.
yeah, let's start with my favorite one. It's I'm biased here, so it's cloud intelligence dashboards. But let's start with billing console. Like in billing
Okay.
console, you can find things like you can measure, like you can track commitment utilization, for example. You can Sam mentioned actually, like you can set up notifications for like when your commitment utilization goes like below particular threshold. So like billing console, it's a great way to get like a great tool to track waste, especially in
Yeah,
around
definitely.
utilization.
Yeah, and following on from that, we've obviously got Curve 2.0, big shout out Curve 2.0. We are pushing customers to go and have a look at that. If you have not, go and check it out. I'll put a link below about all about data
Yeah,
export Curve 2.0.
and then like things become more interesting and complex. So you can use cost and usage report, as you mentioned, to get raw billing data and get use of that data. You can use things like cloud intelligence dashboards to
Wait,
visualize
I've
this
not.
data for you.
I don't know what that is. I've never heard of.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
So
joking.
yeah, sure. Cloud Intelligence Dashboards, it's collection of open source customizable dashboards in Amazon QuickSight, which every customer can deploy. And the benefit of it is that we shape and visualize data out of the box for you in a way how we show it to very like the most complex customers, like how technical account managers, optimization architects, like present the data to very complex customers and help them to optimize. So you can get this all as a tool available for you if you deploy them. So I think we have a link. So in Cloud Intelligence Dashboards, you can actually visualize the core out of the box, and we have some visuals out available for you to visualize you waste for data transfer, exactly the cases which I mentioned for NAT gateways. Then see things like idle VPC endpoints, idle load balancers, idle Kinesis streams, like old and obsolete ABS snapshots, like S3 buckets with standard storage which didn't have a lot of get, list, put API calls. So
Yeah.
all these kind of things.
Amazing. And much love for the CID dashboards in the chat. So loving that. Okay, so I'll just do a quick optimization to more of time. Two quick ones. Compute Optimizer, we've mentioned it before many times, and that is where you can really see how you can improve your compute, both for those over provisioned resources, which was mentioned in the waste part earlier. So when you've got things that are too big or too small, I love it. It does recommend things if it's too small and it thinks maybe you need a little bit bigger, and we'll give you some different options of that. And then the other one is Cost Optimization Hub, released at reInvent last year, which pulls together a bunch of recommendations. So like we mentioned some savings plan stuff, we mentioned Graviton, we've mentioned storage, all these bits. It pulls it all together, and then it will have a look and tell you what is the best recommendation. Because obviously if we have things like reserved or savings plans versus kind of Graviton, and also resizing, like it needs to weigh it out, and we'll give you all that information. So that is a great way to review that. So which brings me on, so let me summarize there. So I'll add this to stage quickly. So these are all the ones we came up with. There's also Trusted Advisor, which does depend on your business support, which gives you a bunch of idle resources, and S3 Storage Lens, which we're going to be doing a session on in a couple of weeks. So make sure you check out the show. And if you want to, I'm just pull the link up. If you want to have a look at all of our live stream episodes coming up in the future, check out the community site to see that. But we'll be doing an S3 storage episode soon. But let's do a quick poll. We all know I love a poll, because I want to see what demo you like. So we have three options. So type into the chat 1, 2, or 3 if this is going to work. There we go. 4, if you would like to see Cost Optimization Hub, is going to be 1. Let's share my screen. There it is. Okay. So in the chat, 1, 2, or 3, Cost Optimization Hub for 1, Compute Optimizer 2, or Cloud Intelligence Dashboards for 3. Drop those in 1, 2, or 3. And let's do 1 to get people saying. So if I do 1, and we want to know what you want to see. So if it's Cost Optimization Hub, we'll kind of give you the overview. Compute Optimizer will look into a resource, and Cloud Intelligence Dashboard will get Yuri to showcase one of the data sets that he was talking about with the idle resources. Oh, and Cost Optimization Hub is winning. Oh, it's a real jump around. Oh, I guess it's going to be me demoing. Oh, some intelligence dashboard is creeping up. It's very close. One of those votes is mine, so it's almost level. Okay, amazing. All right, so it looks like we're going to be going with Cost Optimization Hub, which is a simple transition for me, onto this screen. So Cost Optimization Hub, let's go back into where you can see this. So a quick demo on this. Oh, no, of course.
It's okay.
Yuri, just riff for a second on what Cost Optimization Hub is for me.
Yeah, so like while Steph is loading screen, so Cost Optimization Hub is recent service which we released at last reInvent, and it allows you to get consolidated place where you can see all your savings and cost optimization recommendations from RI and SP recommendations from Compute Optimizer, and actually have this one single pane of glass for like what you could do with your resources, like right size it, purchase savings plans, purchase reserved instances, and stuff like that.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so it is in your billing console on the left-hand side. And what is helpful is immediately it gives you the saving view, which I think for people is quite impactful. You kind of get a measure of that and also a breakdown of what the optimizations are. So for me, it's mostly EC2 that's going to be contributing to that. And then immediately you're like, oh, if this got number up or down, you can review it, but you can go into the different opportunities. And so you can group them together or you can kind of split them out, but let's keep them grouped for a little bit nicer. And immediately what I like about this is you can prioritize. So if I want to go from the top down, my biggest saving, like we talked about that prioritization of time, is this instance. And this is saying move to Graviton. It's currently on this, but you could move to Graviton. Now, of course, with an EC2 recommendation like that, there are other things to consider. But if you go down, I apparently have some terrible GP2s in my account, bad stuff, that I can move to GP3 and how much percentage saving I could get. So it's just a really good way of consolidating all of your information. And we'll give you a bunch of different ones. I think there's like 10, I'm going to say, different sections at the moment, but with this growing all the time. Yeah, Yuri, anything else you want to showcase with it?
Yeah, I think in Cost Optimization Hub, you can also see some classification of resources by whether you can, yeah, I think like recommendation source, recommendation ID, and also like implementation effort, which and if resource restart is needed, which is pretty cool. I think yeah, you should have it somewhere. Yeah, so which is pretty cool because then again you can compare the like amount of savings with the effort which you need to spend and if the restart is needed. So some things like changing the volume EBS volume types, you don't need to restart resource, so it's migration to EC2 to Graviton would be like very high, as you can see here. So it kind of gives you clear understanding what to expect from this optimization. So I like it a lot, and I think the service team behind done a very great job with this.
Yeah, shout out Rig Scheme. And on that, I mean, go and check it out. It's free to enable. Really, really recommend go and do it. If you haven't, you have an Amazon account, go do it now. Do it. And then put in the comments below I've enabled it. Let me know. I also love in the chat, I'm getting shade for doing a GP2 in the year of our Lord 2024. You still have GP2. I know it's an embarrassment, guys. Don't hate on me. Don't cancel me because I had GP2, so like that's GP2 classic. Still a classic. I know how many years have we been talking about GP2 to GP3, and it's still a classic. Okay, all right, last bit. So on to our very last section, which is going to be, so number one, we know what we consider waste. Number two, we know how to identify waste. And then number three, what do we do next? All right, so this is a really intriguing question that we get a lot with customers. We're trying to figure out, now they know this information, what are some key elements to making sure that they can deal with this? So Yuri, do you want to jump in and any specific ones that you like normally help customers deal with before we do like a
Yeah,
summary of them all?
I think like my favorite two here and what I would suggest to start from is like first is three. I wanted to say, and then I realized that there is third one. So first of all, embrace the culture of optimization. Yeah, embrace the culture where you actually where reducing the waste is important in your organization. Because if it's not important, why would anyone care about this? Yeah, so make sure that it's clear for everyone that it's priority for you. So like change the culture. Yeah, push your teams to like to understand that this is important. The second part, provide access for your like all stakeholders to the right tools. Yes, so all the tools which we mentioned. I'm just so often impressed how many customers have those tools not enabled or not deployed, or they simply don't provide access to their teams to those tools. Like give your stakeholders access to these tools and provide them visibility. And the third part is establish clear ownership model, which is kind of closer to the culture, but make sure that your teams own those resources. They own the costs. They have incentive to optimize them. They have incentive to reduce the cost. So like make sure that you can clearly identify who owns what. Because when you see that some instance can be optimized, you need to know who this instance belongs to. Especially like when you have complex setup, at scale with multiple linked accounts, even pair accounts, you need to have good ownership model to know who to think about this.
Yeah. The culture stuff is always the thing that we chat. I feel like the most. It's interesting how that is such a buzzword in a lot of FinOps. A couple from my side. Definitely, the automation side of this is going to be important. There is some stuff that you can automate, and it doesn't have to be. I think people, when they hear automation, it sounds scary if you're from a kind of maybe non-technical background, firstly, but it also sounds like, oh, it's the final thing. If I automate it, that must mean I delete the resource. But it doesn't always have to be that way. You could use automation to track information. You could use information to tag resources. You could automate it so that there is a middleman where you have to approve or decline the deletion of resources. But I think having some automation in how you do some of the work will save you some of that time. Another one is doing it in things like infrastructure as code. So reviewing that and making changes to things like waste, whether that is deleting resources that are in the infrastructure as code that aren't being used, or could you make changes like adding some defaults that we mentioned earlier, those sizing defaults for over provisioned resources, make them a bit smaller to start with. By default, make sure you are using GP3, that you are using Graviton for managed services. Adding those defaults so that in the future you don't have to think about it is amazing.
Yeah.
And something I always recommend is education, like underpinning all of it. Like Yuri was saying about the tools, you're right. There's so many times I'm like, how have you not enabled this thing? Or how have you not given other people access to it? It makes sense because sometimes like ignorance is bliss. You didn't even know it was there. But it's important that if you do enable those tools to people, tell them how to use it, because people might not even realize it's there and they might not even see the benefit of it. Whereas if you can give them the education on what you define as waste and have those parameters, and something that Compute Optimizer allows you to do now is set those thresholds. And so previously, if someone was like, oh no, it's not right because I need my instance to be like X, Y, or Z, you can now define what waste means in your
Yeah.
business and then have that follow through.
Yeah. I like example with infrastructure as a code because like you can analyze it. Yeah, you can analyze, and you don't need to run like API calls and stuff like that. You can analyze your templates. You can search for patterns like GP2. You can, some tools like InfraCost and things like that to
Mm.
to assess the cost, like, because it allows you to optimize proactively, what
Mhm.
I think is much more important. So not when the workload's already in the cloud, but before they
Yeah,
hit the cloud. So this is
prevent
super
that
important.
waste.
Yeah.
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 So here's quite the quick summary of all the things that we just covered in case anybody wants to kind of see those talking points. But yeah, that is a good kind of suggestion of things, what to do next. The last thing, we got a quick question before we get to our Richard summary. Data transfer costs still confuse me. I mean, it is complicated. I do agree, but we do have some great resources. If you check out on the YouTube channel, we do have some, too many things. We do have, that's the email address, Stephanie. If you check out the YouTube channel Keys to AWS Optimization, on there are a couple of really good episodes where we've really deep dive into data transfer and do explain some of, like Yuri said, some of the simple things that you can do that make a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get ourselves ready for Secret Richard before we move on to our Cost News Digest. So as always, Richard has been listening to the episodes in the background and will be sharing his summary of what we just spoke about. And I'll be reading it out blind. Normally they're quite entertaining. So this week, number one, the cost devil makes work for idle resources. Oh, the idle hands kind of comment there. Steph's time is money. Yes, it is. And I love to spend it with you guys on this stream. That's how I spend my time. CID is the bee's knees, baby. Sometimes I believe I have to read these out. And embrace the culture. Yes, get into the FinOps culture. We love to see it.